Biggest week for AI ever. Did Apple still win?
Guys, welcome to the All Future Podcast. Crazy week here for AI, for consumer tech, for phones and Google and Microsoft and Apple and everyone. And it's only Tuesday. So who knows what's going to happen by Thursday. But two big things this week. OpenAI had their event where they showcase GPT 4.0. Lots of really impressive capabilities there. Great demos. And showed the beginnings of AI integration into Apple with their Mac app.
With a key command that's
with
in the option space.
A specific key command, which I think is a little bit of a preview of the type of thing we're going to see in WWDC. And then just this morning, as of recording this video, Google I.O. with Google coming out with all of their features they're bringing to Gemini. And I think essentially those guys probably watched the OpenAI event yesterday and it was like, let's retool ours a little so we have answers for all this. Because it almost works as, oh, you saw them do that thing yesterday. We got something like that too. Yeah. In parentheses, that will be available at some point in the future. So it's, really interesting week. What's your read on this, man? What are you excited about? What's going on? Like, what do you think's happening here?
I always love seeing this back and forth because it seems like at one moment we're talking about how this model beat this model, and then all of a sudden they come out with their better version that beats this one. It's total competition, and it's going so fast. So a lot of the ChatGPT things we saw yesterday with 4.0 are still really impressive, but then Google kind of answered it today already. And it means they're simultaneously working on this. They obviously didn't develop that in response to what we saw yesterday.
They're like, quick, code an AI that can do this.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm very excited about all this. And it's really interesting to see Google's approach here because they do have the Android advantage. So they're the ones that are technically like equivalent to Apple. So they're building all of these tools under DeepMind, and then they can integrate this fully into Android and make it better than an iOS app would be. So that's what Apple's going to need to do on the probably OpenAI side of things is what it's looking like right now.
I'd reword that another way. OpenAI needs Apple. And a lot of people were talking about, why is there the standalone Mac app is coming before the Windows app? And OpenAI had this little statement, most of our users are using Mac, Here's what I suspect is happening, is that OpenAI realizes they need to partner with someone who can put this in the hands of people. Yeah. And that's not going to be Humane Pen, right? Like, they're going to need to get this technology out there. And again, I don't think it is even those kind of standalone apps. I don't think it's the website interface. This needs to be integrated into an OS, which is that is the big difference, I think, between what we saw yesterday from OpenAI and what we saw this morning from Google, is that Google is showing, here's how Gemini is integrated into everything. Yeah. Like, and you don't even have to think about it. It's sitting there, right? If you look, just a quick laundry list of stuff that they showed. Your calendar, your email. Oh, by the way, you want to listen to your phone calls? It'll do that too. I don't know if everyone wants to do that, but that's the kind of integration you can only have.
The circle thing.
Yeah, the circle search thing. There's a lot of stuff like that, right? That if you're not integrated into the OS, you're just not gonna be able to do that thing. And that's when AI actually becomes useful. Is when it's really integrated like that. And OpenAI needs Apple, I think, just as much as Apple needs OpenAI right now. It's because they need the ability to get this technology out there, have people use it, let people see how useful it can be. Because I would argue, even right now, as a person who I use GPT to actually do stuff, not just play around with. I use it to do things, but I would use it a lot more if it had deep OS integration. And that's kind of what Google's coming with Gemini here. And I think what Apple and OpenAI are probably going to show us at WWDC.
Definitely. So some of the things that Google announced here are very similar, like I was mentioning, but we saw they're redesigning their search engine. And I think this is going to be much bigger of a deal than a lot of people realize. Because Google...
This is splitting the atom, man. This is a crazy level event for some people, for sure.
They already own so much of search. I think it's something like 89 point something in the US, 90 worldwide. And they're going to be changing this so that AI can give you results. And so we're already kind of seeing that. You know, you Google something and you get an answer that isn't It's not telling you the source necessarily. I think probably it does, but it's just right there in bold. You have your answer before you're actually getting to your results. And it's apparently that's going to be taken to the next level to where you can Google even further, even more details, and it's going to give you an answer, and like a satisfactory answer to where you don't even need to check anything, which completely changes the internet.
Yes, and I think the marketing term is generative search. I think, or search generative something. I forgot what exactly they call this stuff. AI is going to rapidly change how we get information, and it's already happening for some people at certain levels. We've talked in other videos about how I'm kind of used to it now because I've just used these systems so much that I know when it's going to be better for me to just start with ChatGPT than try to figure out something myself. And what I'll do is I'll have ChatGPT through a conversation get me to some weird esoteric thing I'm trying to figure out or trying to know, and then that can set me off. Okay, well now I need to do the real research on that, but I didn't really even know what to search first. Like I needed to have this conversation with GPT to understand where to even point my mind at, right? Yeah. And Google is like, oh, well, let's eliminate the middleman there and let's just start having generative AI results. Unintended consequences, maybe, or unforeseen consequences, or let me rephrase that, 100% foreseen consequences, but that are going to have an impact that I think people aren't ready for, right? Google already has a massive influence on what information we see.
Yeah.
Based on their algorithm systems. And you have seen people for years. I mean, there are people who make a living doing SEO, search engine optimization, right? And you can see how that has been an arms race between Google developers and people making content for a long time. And it's why a lot of Google search now is garbage. A lot of people, the famous kind of thing is it's better to put what you're searching for and then type Reddit after it because it'll bring you to the Reddit page where someone's actually solved it already for you. Because what you're going to get is a lot of SEO drivel that people have made that's designed to game the system.
Yeah.
That is even more prevalent since generative AI is coming out and all these articles and things have been written with generative AI. So Google's like, well, let's circumvent that and let's just make our own, information right at the top. But then eventually you're going to have the problem is who's making that information. And right now you can use many different examples. I got a cooking website, right? And I show recipes every day. And right now, there's a human out there who's making recipes or whatever, and they're putting it on their website, and then that gets, trolled through the Google system and put up there. But what's going to happen is that Google's very soon is going to, you're saying, oh, I want to make mashed potatoes. It looks at 50 mashed potato articles, gives you the summary, puts it at the top. Now, eventually, what you're going to have is people stop putting up recipes on how to make mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
And then where's it going to source its data? From other AIs, maybe? You're going to get this weird circle thing where it's AI feeding AI. Or you're going to get where just the generative system is doing it, a generative system controlled by a publicly traded trillion-dollar company, not by humans, right? In the traditional sense of, in this example, chefs out there that are figuring out how to make the right thing.
Yeah.
Then you're going to, we talk about this all the time, how AI is going to wreck the economy in a lot of ways. The entire creator economy is going to get destroyed by AI and is already happening. We've already seen it across the board, right? Like how much content that you see on TikTok right now is AI generated, a massive amount. How much we just talk about just reading content. How much is that AI generated? Now you're going to take away the ability to even find human-made content.
Yeah.
So it's game over, for a lot of people, fortunately, in our exact line of work, right? So
all of my exact lines of work.
Exactly. So bad news. Hope Wendy's is still hiring. But this is a kind of the maybe dark part of the stuff that Google is talking about today. And they're talking about all these ways it can improve your life and do all this. But is this really going to make the world a better place? I don't know.
Yeah. Just to clarify, you said, were you just giving an example that you have a cooking website, or do you actually have a cooking website?
Oh, I do not have a cooking website. I wish I did. That would have been cool.
I was excited.
I do have. Look, I do have an example. I own a YouTube Shorts channel that does space news, and it just talks about space news in shorts, right? And that's a thing that is super SEO based. Like people are like, oh, like what's the distance to the moon? Oh, when's the eclipse happening or something like that. And right now, like those videos are getting served through Google search. But we're going to get to a point where that information can just be generative and that entire video can be generative, which is something else we saw today with Google's new generative video system, right? So Google this whole time, I think, has been trying to figure out how do I cut out the middleman, and that we don't actually make a lot of things. We just serve them to people. But what if we don't need all these people out there making stuff? That gives us a lot of problems. We have people talking politics or being weird or having scandals. What if we controlled everything, which is kind of seems like where it's headed.
Yeah, they've announced their new VO model, and this is basically their Sora equivalent from OpenAI. And so far, it's the same kind of thing. It's like stock footage type of stuff. It's slow motion. We think the issue there is probably motion blur, but it looks incredible. And to the point where some of it, you're kind of watching it going like, oh, yeah. Like, oh, no. Like, this looks...
this looks pretty good.
Yeah, this is like... And it's weird that I'm looking at jellyfish and they look like jellyfish, but this is completely generated. So, yeah, we're seeing all those pieces that they could put together. And the one piece I was thinking of is I think a lot of people still think as well about generative AI content and think it needs to be still like a human prompted it and then posted it and then theirs is being found. But this could absolutely soon get to the area where you Google something and not only does it generate results, it generates a video version of the results for you, and you watch that immediately.
100% going to happen. There's already video generative stuff in the GPT store you can play around with, and it will make the video for you. And I'm talking from concept to script to images, the whole thing, just all the way through. And yeah, like exactly what you're talking about. Like the people who there's, very famously one of the most popular videos on YouTube is how to tie a tie. And there's like 3 or 4 of them that have millions of views. That's gone. That stuff's gone, right? Because that's a generative AI is going to make that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the sad part of it, well, maybe sad for people like us that make content, but it's probably going to be better. Like the generative version is probably going to be more accurate, get to the point, well lit, show me how to do it. And think about generating stuff on the fly, like you're just saying. So you saw how to tie a tie, and it's a generative video makes it, and you go, whoa, stop. I want to do a double Windsor knot. And he goes, okay, no problem. And then it generates that on the spot, right? And then you're like, actually, tell it to me as Oscar the Grouch. And then it like redoes it, makes it on the spot, right? That's a way better thing for consumers than what we have now, which is human-made stuff. Unfortunately, the non-human-made stuff in many ways is better for the users.
Yeah, that's too bad, but it makes sense. You can tell it to cut out the extra rambling at the beginning. You can tell it, get straight to the point. I guess then the question is when they're doing that, because right now Google has the financial incentive of people sponsoring and all that stuff of SEO and whatnot. You see lots of sponsored results at the top of a thing. So if they're essentially eliminating people making content long term, then what is the way that they get money? Is it just by data collection?
I'm about to make you feel even worse about the future. You're going to say, hey, I want to learn how to tie a tie. I want to be a Windsor knot. And then all of a sudden in the background of that video is going to be a McDonald's bag or something like that. That's a sponsored generative thing, right? Like that
makes sense.
That guy's going to be wearing, like as he's tying the tie, it's also going to zoom in and you're going to see the Nike logo on it or something, right? Like people are going to sponsor generative stuff in that way. And that's 100% how they're going to make money on it, right? Like it's so like don't worry, they're going to figure out how to make money on this. And then right now in the system, how it works right now, when you get these generative responses, they don't override sponsored stuff at the top, so you still see traditional links at the top, sponsored content. But again, like Google can easily circumvent this too, right? And just make it so where you just put the ad at a different place.
But I think we can go back to the event now, right? The Google I/O.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
We went off on a little tangent there. But
So another thing that I found pretty interesting was what they call gems, and this is personalized AI chatbots. You were saying you could do a mean one.
I want a mean one, man. I know, like the OpenAI
whips
one,
you into shape.
Yeah, that OpenAI one's too nice. I don't need Scarlett Johansson being like, "Oh, excuse me, you have an email." I'm like, no. I need a guy yelling. He's like, "You screwed up. You didn't reply to this email. You better get on it." That's what I need. Discipline in my life. So this is. I like this. I like this a lot. And I think we've talked about this a lot. This idea of personalizing your AI, not just in terms of what it knows about you, but how to interact with you. And we'll go back to the movie Her, a movie we go back to all the time. The actual, when he actually activates the Samantha character, the AI, at first it's just a robot voice talking to him and asking him questions about his personality. and then based on how he responds, then it creates the AI. So I could see that happening too. Like you have a 4 or 5 minute conversation with an AI, and then it goes, "Oh, this is what you need," and then it makes this personality for the AI that's better suited to you.
Yeah, and it's exactly what you would want to engage with more and have a natural conversation with, which makes a lot of sense because that's what we want. We want natural conversation, but it's that same thing where it's utopian and dystopian. I could see both at the same exact time. But another thing that was interesting at this event was watermarks.
Yep.
So they are mentioning the integrity aspect of that and watermarks, so things are represented clearly labeled as AI.
Yeah. What they're talking about is not like a little transparent image at the bottom that tells you, like literally baking in digital IDs that a human cannot detect, but computer systems can, so that you know that it was AI created, which is, absolutely, this has got to come. And I imagine this is going to be a legal requirement at some point, that any kind of AI thing needs to have some kind of baked in digital watermarking so that we can know what's real and what's not.
So then they also said Gemma 2.0 is coming this summer, which is one of those we're doing it, it's coming. And then they mentioned specifically, which kind of brings me back to Apple, that these things are much better on Android. So a lot of these features, it's like you'll get it in the app, you can do it on an iPhone, but it's better on Android because it's integrated like we were talking about. And that brings me back to the Apple thing of just them partnering. This really seems like Apple's going to go on the OpenAI side of things. That's been the rumors, but this just really seems to be separating them quite well.
Yes, and they got to it even more so than we have said before. The other thing Google previewed here was, I think it's called Astral, which is like their multimodal video thing.
Oh yeah, where it's
Astra,
understanding.
Maybe? Yeah. Which is a thing we saw exactly from GPT 4.0 yesterday. That's another thing where Google's like, it's coming soon. Ours isn't ready exactly yet. Whereas the GPT 4.0 one you can go use right now. But Apple's going to need to have that function. Apple's going to need that function because that's the thing, again, that's going to move units, especially when people start seeing their friends have it. And it seems like all the demos of them right now are pretty gimmicky demos. They're like, oh, what's on my desk? Write a song about that. Like, who does it? No one's going to, no one really needs to do that. But when you start talking about practical applications, right? Like, hey, look at my car engine. Something's making a noise in there. What's going on here? And it's like, oh, I think it's this. This is what you should do, right? Like, it's like things in your everyday life that you can use the multimodal AI for. You're going to need that baked into the OS, like I keep saying, so that it's convenient and easy to use. And if your phone doesn't have that and your buddy's has it, that's a little bit of a kind of a light year leap, if you will, right? It's like, oh, like this is like a whole nother thing. And it's the way to make smartphones exciting again. And I think
totally
it's this next kind of iteration of smartphones. So the next generation, Pixels and Galaxies and iPhones are going to be AI devices. That's how they're going to market them. That's what's going to get people excited about them. And the way to make sure your phone is still the top selling phone is going to be make sure it is the best AI device you can buy.
Absolutely. And having those things built in, it's going to be one of those things where a lot of these things can go to the cloud, so you can do them on any device in theory, but it's going to be faster to do it on the new phone. And so you're going to want that. Once you see this natural language and you're dealing with it and it's going back and forth and it feels natural, but it's a little slow. And then you're like, oh, if I upgrade phones and it can do the first pieces of this on device really well and then be sending stuff out to the cloud, then I want to upgrade to the new iPhone 16 with the
whatever
20 bionic.
Whatever they call that chip in that thing. Absolutely, right. And that's what you want. You want that, integrated into the OS, easy to use. You're not having to fumble through apps. You want it. And the other thing I talk about a lot, and that's a lot of what Google showed at the event today, is not only just AI understanding what's happening, but AI execution on things. Right. That's what you need. That you need, it's cool to make an AI write me a song. That's fine, I guess, right? But what I really need is for me to talk to the AI and be like, hey, like, am I low on groceries? And it's using all its sensors to go like, oh yeah, I'm almost out of milk. Do you want me to order some for you? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead and take care of that. And then boom, it did. Like that level of understanding your world and then being able to execute on it.
Yeah,
that's what these things are going to do. That can only happen built into the OS. So that's what I'm hoping we see from Apple and OpenAI at WWDC to answer what Google just showed us today.
I'm looking forward to it.